Okay, so so we're going to begin from the last paragraph of Shar Gimel Perek Yud, even though we already started Perek Yud Aleph. But so in the last parak, he set up an amazing picture, or that the whole creation, right, has layers, and each inner layer is like the soul to the outer layer, all the way up to, like, so we had the four Yisoides and the four Malachim and the four Shems of Hashem. Everything, there was a hierarchy, and within that hierarchy, each layer was like the soul of the previous layer, all the way to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to the four names of Hashem, to the four letters of the name of Hashem, Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, right? And that's what he was saying. So he said, V'hu yizbarach shmoi, so let's just take it from there. V'hu yizbarach shmoi hu ha'elekim ba'al ha'koiches kulan. And Hashem, blessed be His name, He's the God who is the master of all of these forces, right? Meaning He is the life-giving force that is the soul of all of these souls, so to speak. He's that last foundation, that not last, but the first foundation out of which basically allows of all of these other layers to emanate. Which he said, which is before he said that's how you could be mashbi'a malach, right? You could, for example, you can control an angel by using God's name because you are tapping into what the living source of that malach. So right, so over here, ultimately Hashem is that's why he's called Bala Koiches Kulam, right? Shehu nishmas v'chiyus v'shoyrish hashroshim shel koiches kulam, because he is the soul and the living force and the root of all roots of all of these forces that exist. As the pasuk says, and you give life to all of them, you sustain all of them. Kol rega mamash, every single second. V'lechein nikrahu yizbarach nishmas odechol nishmasin. So that's how Hashem is called in Zohar, the soul of all souls. V'ikra v'shorish odechol amen. He's the root of all of the worlds. Good. Now Perek Yud Aleph. V'ha'inyan ki yadua b'Zohar. And the idea is known as in the Zohar, Shehu Yizbarach v'dibur echad. Hashem and His speech, Hashem and His word is one entity. Right? Hashem's word, Hashem's command, Hashem's word, Hashem's speech is not separate from His essence. It's one entity. V'chol dibur u'maymer shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So every speech and saying of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, b'maisa b'mreishis, when in the description of the creation, she'omar vayhi, right? The way it's described is that He said something and it was. He said and it was. Hu hanefesh v'chiyus oisoi hadover shenivra boy. So that speech that what created, right? That speech that was said to create something, that speech is actually the nefesh and the living force behind that creation, right? Hashem said, "Let there be light." So the speech, "Let there be light," is actually the life-giving force for the creation, which is called light, right? V'chol ribe rivovis haminim sheboy. Right, and so any creation with all of its, thousands of species that emanate from it, are all imamazoles together with all of the constellations, which are appointed to run the creations of Amalochim, Amamunim, Aloisim, Amazoles, and the angels which are appointed to run the constellations, V'shorsham, and the root of the angels, V'shorsham, and the root of the roots of those angels and the constellations and the creations, etc. L'mayla mayla shebechol ha'olam. So Hashem's speech, which said, "Let there be this," is the root of everything that follows to hold that creation together. Let there be this, that's the root. So it goes back to the idea that we say, "Histakel be'raisa bara alma." Hashem looked into the Torah and created the world. So the Torah is the blueprint of the world. What does that mean? It's not just the blueprint. We're saying that the speech of the Torah is actually the life-giving force of the world, right? And from then and forward, all of the days of the world, Devora Yizbarach is the speech of Hashem, Nitzav Bahem is like suspended in all of creations, Liha'iram, to enlighten them, Ulekaimam, and to sustain them kol rega, every single moment. B'chol protein Yonehem, and all of the details, Vishinuim, and all of their transformations, Visidur Matzovim, and all of the arrangements of their existence. V'lachein, Therefore, b'chol ha'eser ma'amoros, in all of the 10 sayings with which the world was created, lo nizker rak shem Elokim. The Torah only uses the name Elokim, right? The Hashem is only referred to as Elokim, which again we're defining as God, which means the source of all sort of powers, the Bala Koich is the master of all forces. Now he's saying more than that. He's saying it's not just that God is the master of all forces, but we're saying that God and his speech is one entity. So therefore the speech that Hashem verbalized in order to create that thing, that is part of the Elokim that is giving that thing sustenance, right? That's the God's rotzen, you could say God's will, God's speech, whatever you want to call it, that description that God, right? So in other words, God described something. So when you describe something, you create a virtual reality. So God's virtual reality created physical reality, right? So that's Lakim. That's God's essence, which is the same thing as his word, which creates virtual reality, creates physical reality. And all of the species that were created in it. Because Hashem is the Nefesh, is the soul, which is diffused through the innards or the pnimius, whatever, the insides of all of these creations. It's just right now our eyes are blinded from seeing be'enei habosar with our physical eyes how exactly that speech, that description is really present in the physical creation. Our eyes are just not able to see it. But in reality, if we had the right vision, we would be able to see God's speech in each creation, right? And in the future, ksiv, what does it say? V'ra'u kol basar yachtov, right? And all of the flesh together will see, ki pi Hashem diber, for the mouth of Hashem spoke, right? So again, what does it say in the pasuk? The pasuk says that the flesh, right? All the flesh will see that. What are they going to see? The speech of Hashem. In other words, their eyes will open up to be able to see that connection between the spiritual and the physical, between the virtual reality and the physical reality. That our grasp will be purified even with our flesh and blood eyes, the physical eyes, the diffusion of God's will, the diffusion of God's speech in all of the things that exist in the world. Right? Which is really a vision that Klal Yisrael were able to grasp at the time that the Torah was given. How do we know that? Because it's written, and all of the people, they saw the voices, right? They saw the voices, right? And this is included in also what the Gemara says. The world, this world is not like the next world. This world, Hashem's name is written Yud Hey Vav Hey, but we pronounce it Adonai with Aleph Dalet, right? Which means master. Adonai means master, right? Master, what does master means? Master means here's an entity that's separate from me, but I'm the master of it. I can choose to do whatever I want with it. So even though we're pronouncing Yud Hey Vav Hey, which we're going to see later, he's going to define what that means, which is much more all-encompassing name, closer to the essence of Hashem. In other words, this thing is not really separate from Hashem. This is part of the essence of Hashem. But we pronounce it Aleph Dalet because we only see Hashem as the master of this thing. We don't see the actual, diffusion of Hashem's essence in this thing. We only see Hashem as running the show. So we call Hashem Adonai. He's the master of what's going on, right? So the Ha'olam Hazeh, this world, it's written Yud Hey Vav Hey. So we know that it's written a certain way, but it's pronounced Aleph Dalet. It's pronounced Adonai. Aval ha'olam habo nichtav b'yud hey v'nikra b'yud hey. But in the olam habo, Hashem's name is going to be written Yud Hey, Vav Hey, and we're going to pronounce it the way it's written. Meaning we're going to see the way Hashem's essence is diffused in all of creation. Okay, we should understand this. Good. Let's see the Haggadah. So the Haggadah says, "V'yesh loimer al pizeh maimorim zal," and through this we can understand another statement in the Medrash. Al zeh hakosav, on this pasuk. Which pasuk? The pasuk that he said before, that all of people saw the voices. Right. So the Mechilta says like this: Shehoyu shoymim es hanira, v'royim es hanishma. They were seeing. No, I'm sorry. They were hearing. Shoymim. They were hearing what is visible, v'royim es hanishma, and they were seeing what is heard. Right. So it's like, so it sounds like their senses were reversed for some reason. Right. They were seeing the voices. So in other words, they saw what is heard, but the Medrash also adds that they heard what is usually seen, which is, I don't know where the Medrash gets it from. So now he explains. What the Medrash is trying to say is, Shekol kach nizbatlu mehem oz kol koiches hagashmis, that they were uplifted so much, and that their physical nature was completely nullified to such a degree, and that their intellect was so purified, that the entire essence of things that are, usually sense experienced, the physical things that are sense experienced, which is primarily seen, right? I could see this item, I could see this cell phone, right? So usually I see it, but they were so spiritually purified by the time of Matan Torah, that they were not able to even see the physical entity with their eyes, with their sense, which is their sense, rusom, with their sense of vision. And they couldn't even concentrate on the physical existence at all. That the Medrash is kind of like, parabolically saying, that if they wanted to understand, like, what's this physical entity, you had to verbalize it. You had to speak it out to them. You know what a cell phone is? It is this box that is, that can make phone calls. You have to explain with words. Again, give them a picture of the virtual reality, so then they can understand the physical reality, because they weren't able to visualize it. Usually, you see it. You don't have to. I don't need to explain to you what this is. This is a book. I don't need to explain to you what it is. I see it. I see it right there. It's in front of me. But they were so spiritually uplifted that to them the physical reality was more foreign to them than their spiritual reality. So you had to speak out, again, which is usually more spiritual. Speech is more spiritual. You have to speak out to them the physical reality, right? That's what it means that they heard what is usually seen, right? Lashmiyam l'shema oizen she yeshnam b'metzias. In order to bring them into existence, they had to verbalize it. V'inyonim haruchonim, on the other hand, but the spiritual matters, that initially you had to, in order to appreciate spiritual things, you had to speak it out, internalize it, because they're not readily available. Now they were able to see with their vision, right? That's what it means that they saw the voices, meaning they saw the spiritual reality of the world. Right? To just understand this, the Maharal, in one of his introductions in Gvuras Hashem, talks about this Chazal. Chazal says that Chacham Odif Minovi, that a wise person is stronger, is greater than a prophet. So the Maharal wants to explain, what does that mean that a Chacham is greater than a prophet? The Maharal says like this. The Maharal says that a prophet is called a Choyzer, is called a seer. So he can only see, in other words, he has a vision from Hashem. We call it a vision from Hashem, because he can only the only messages he can receive from Hashem are messages that are within his sense experience, right? So if he experienced, colors, so he can visualize colors. Let's say if a prophet is blind, let's say, I don't know if a prophet can be blind, but let's say if you have a prophet that's blind, right? Then he was blind his whole life. So Hashem will never be able to send him a message, a visual message of prophecy with colors, because that was never part of his sense experience, right? On the other hand, a wise person, he cannot visualize something, right? But he can deduce it logically, and he can get like a logical description of something without really fully feeling it or internalizing, but just through logic and wisdom. Let's say experienced, let's say there are 256 types of blue, right? Let's say I only experienced, and you put them all in a layer, right? From the dark blue to the light blue. And you put them on a layer and you take one out, right? So and I've never seen that shade of blue. I've never seen that shade of blue, but I can tell with my logic. You can tell, look, each one is, there's 1% decrease of blue, in these 255 blues, and I see one is missing. So I don't know exactly what it looks like, but I know that it's somewhere, it's going to be lighter than this one and darker than this one. I don't fully see it, but I could, using my logic, I can kind of, figure it out. So that's what Chazal say, that Chacham is Odif Minavi, that a wise person is greater than a Navi, because a Navi is limited by his sense experience. A wise person can actually kind of go just a little bit beyond his sense experience, right? So over here is what he's saying also. He's saying that this beautiful. I mean, I think it's a very beautiful idea that the Medrash says that they saw what is usually heard, and they heard what is usually saw, is because so meaning there's the world of sense experience, which is felt. It's not. You don't need to explain it. You need to verbalize it because you feel it, you sense it, right? But then there is a world that's beyond the sense, and that can only be achieved through words, through logic. Words representing logic, right? So they were on that madrega in Matan Torah where they lived the world of Chachma. They understood logic. They understood kind of the idea with which Hashem created the world. That whole picture of perfect totality. They visualized it. They saw it. Meaning they were, to them, that logic was so clear, it was as if they saw it. On the other hand, the seeing of the world itself, that usually was very logical, but because we're used to it, to them it was no longer as visible as before. Nothing made sense. But this is like this, it didn't make sense. So it was no longer like as obvious and as graspable as before. Okay. We'll continue. V'hu inyan hakosov, and this is what the pasuk means to say, v'lo yikanef oid moirecha v'hoyu einecha royo says moirecha. So the pasuk in Shaya says, v'lo yikanef comes from the word knaf. Knaf means a wing, right? But knaf means like, so he's going to bring this later, that the prophet Yecheskel, which describes the Ma'aseh Merkava, talks about angels, describes them having 6 wings, right? And they cover their legs with the 2 lower wings. They cover, whatever it is. They use the wings to cover. So over here, Mulo Yikonef, right, means really to cover, as if to shield with the wing. So then we translate this pasuk V'lo Yikonef oid moirecha, and moirecha means your guide, your teacher, right? Meaning, if you don't know, we put this pasuk on usually by gedolim pictures, V'hoyu einecha royes as moirecha, your eyes should see your guide, meaning your teachers, your moirecha. But really, it's talking about Hashem, your master, your teacher, right? Your guide. So he says V'lo Yikonef oid moirecha, Hashem will no longer hide from you. And your eyes will be able to see your guide, meaning Hashem. The 2 of the wings that these angels cover themselves with, 2 of the wings cover their names, the Zohar says. What is the name? Name is like what he said before. The names of Hashem that are the soul of every malach. Hashem, they used to hide, they hide it with their wings. Meaning we don't see the essence of each malach. Even if we have a connection to the malach, we don't see the essence of each malach, which is, Hashem's that's behind the malach. So Ein Shem Heitev Kol Inyan. Right? So again, what he's saying is that in the future, we will be able to see, Hashem will not be hidden from you. We'll be able to visualize the way Hashem's essence is diffused throughout the entire creation. Okay. I just have to, I know it's very late, but I have to just finish this thought. V'lechein pasach yisbarach shmoi reishis aseres hadvorim anochi Hashem Elokecha. And so Hashem began the 10 commandments. I am Hashem your God. That's the beginning of the 10 commandments. Kizeh kol ikar yisoid ha'emunah, because that's the foundation of faith. Shetzarich kol ish Yisrael likboya b'libo, that every Jewish person has to internalize and set into his heart. Shirak hu yisbarach shmoi hu abal koyach amiti, that only Hashem is the true force that exists. Right? Is the true reality is Hashem. V'nishmas v'chiyus v'shoyresh ha'ikar shaloi. And the soul and the living force and the root of everything belongs to Him. Right? There's no other forces. That's why it's Hashem, I am Hashem. There should be no other gods. That's the beginning of spirituality, to see that everything emanates from Hashem. Again, that all goes back. All of this is included in just when we refer to Hashem as Elohim. He is the Elohim, meaning He is the root of all existence. He is the root of that creation. He is the root of that speech that holds the creation together. He is that initial reality upon which all realities emanate from. Now, Aval im kol zeh, and this is now the punchline. Aval im kol zeh, lefi perushay v'inyono shel zeh Hashem. But after all that's said and done, according to the meaning of that name, which is Elohim, right, the life sustenance of all of that exists, still mashma sheyesh b'metzius gomer gamoy lomis, that it's true that we understand that Hashem is diffused through this creation, right? But we still understand that, however, this creation has its own entity. The name Elohim does not take away the existence of this entity. We say that it exists. It exists only because it has its existence from the virtual reality, which has its existence from the speech of Hashem, which has its existence from Hashem Himself. But it still exists as an entity by itself. Right? So the name Elohim by itself does not nullify the existence of this entity. It only says that this entity's life force comes from Hashem. Right? So again, sheyesh b'metzius gomer gamay lomis, they have a complete existence, the worlds, and all of the forces that were created, from His pure will. Why? He was able to constrict His glory, and as if to say that He left room for the existence of all of these forces and all of these worlds. Just Hashem is their soul, and He is the root, the source root of their living force. They receive that living force from Him. Hashem diffused with them, and He is hidden within them. Just like we say that the soul of person is diffused throughout his whole body. That even though the soul completely is diffused through every single cell and every single minute particle of the body, we don't say that the body is completely nullified to the soul. The soul is the master of the body, that's true, but the body has its own independent entity. Right? We don't say it's kilu eina b'mitzias klal. We don't say it's as if it's no longer in existence. And the same applies to all of that system that He set up, that picture that each world is above, right? The world above it is like the soul to the lower world. It doesn't mean that the lower world doesn't exist anymore. With all of that, even though the upper world is the soul to the lower world still has its own independent existence. Why? Because all of this, the name Elohim, fits what He described as our perspective, right? There's our perspective where Hashem, the world exists, and Hashem exists kind of external to the world. And then there's Hashem perspective, which really does not allow for the existence of anything besides Hashem. So the name Elohim is that name Elohim where we understand that everything emanates from Hashem, but yet we still attribute independent existence to everything that exists. Avol, but Shem ha'etzem havaya baruch hu, but however the name of Hashem, Yud Kei Vav Kei, that's even on a higher level. Moire ala bechina v'ha'inyan kefi asher hu mitzido yisborach. That name is more closely associated with the perspective that's from Hashem's perspective. That is where really nothing, so to speak, completely, the existence is completely nullified to the existence of Hashem, as it was explained above. Now in parentheses, he's saying an important point, it doesn't make sense. Now even though, 1 second, Yud Kei Vav Kei, the name is only applicable, and it's only a name to Hashem's attachment to the worlds, to the existence, to the universe. Any name of Hashem is only a name because it exists, because the universe exists, right? Outside of the universe, Hashem has no name. He's infinite, he has no name. Name is only an idea that allows us to attach to Hashem. That's a name. We call him a name. We have a grasp to that. So even Yud Kei Vav Kei, he's saying, of course, any name of Hashem is automatically assumes a creation, right? So don't tell me that, right? And he's saying that Yud Kei Vav Kei is kind of from his perspective, Hashem's perspective, which really negates all of creation. So he's saying, you're right. Of course, any name of Hashem assumes an independent creation, but still, right? Hashem's essence, which is infinity, is completely negates the creation, but still and therefore cannot be hinted to or expressed with using any name. Afal Pikein, however, still in all, still from a perspective of this name, the worlds completely cease to have an independent entity. They are not that they completely cease, but they are so utterly nullified, so utterly I don't know what is the word, overwhelmed in front of his existence, in front of his glory. So it's as close as the Yud Kei Vav Kei is as close as possible to Hashem's essence as we can possibly get, which is nearly complete nullification of any independent existence of anything that exists. That's why we refer to this name as the name of Etzem, the real name. Shema Miyuchad. We also call it the unique name. Baruch Hu, blessed be He. Right? So now just to find last paragraph. V'zeu shomer hakosov. This is what the pasuk is saying. Ki Hashem hu ha'olakim. That's what this verse really means. Hashem hu ha'olakim. Rotzeloimer. It means to say, Im kim mitzad hasagaseinu, that even though from our perspective, hu nikra b'shem Elokim, we refer to him primarily as Elokim, meaning again the life-giving force, the master of everything that exists. Umitzidoi is barach, and from his perspective, nikra b'vechina shem havaya, he is called Yud Kei Vav Kei, which is his perspective, which almost negates the entire creation. Be'emes akol echad, in reality, it's all one thing. Hashem hu ha'elakim. Hashem hu ha'elakim. K'moshin is bayar le'el perek zayin atzimtzim v'akav v'koil ochad. So this goes back to that idea that one of these names, Elakim, I'm not sure which one, is closer associated to the idea of tzimtzum, and the other name is closer associated to the idea of kav. But even though he explained that in reality both of those things are one idea, there's really no. They're just two perspectives of one idea. Again, like he said before, it's Hashem's perspective and our perspective. Mitzad HaTzimtzum, he said, nothing exists. Mitzad HaKav, you begin to have an independent or semi-independent existence. So when we declare Hashem Hu Elokim is what we're saying. We understand from the perspective of Elokim. Again, there is an independent entity, but we understand that entity has its complete life force from Hashem, But then there's even a higher level of understanding, which is Hashem Hu Elokim, that Hashem, which negates the independent existence, is so we understand that the Elokim, again, we understand that the Elokim, which is an understanding that everything comes from Hashem. We understand that more than that, He's also Hashem, which is not only that everything comes from Hashem, that there is really nothing besides Hashem. Okay, so what don't I understand here? There are a bunch of things I don't understand here, but we'll have to pick it up already in the next time. But then, why doesn't the pasuk then say Elokim Hu Hashem? Why does the pasuk say Hashem Hu Elokim? Mm-hmm. Right? Hashem is also the Elokim. Shouldn't the pasuk say Elokim is also Hashem? Because Hashem is as a higher madrega. So Elokim we can understand. Hashem we don't understand. So you should say Elokim Hu Hashem, not Hashem Hu Elokim. All right, we'll leave it at that.